You have less than, you got about 5 days or so to do any type of critical prep just in case we were to have another government shutdown. Marine X here talking about some things to do for your prep or your daily life that may be critical, especially if you depend on the government for different crap. By January 30th, we have to fund Department of Homeland Security, the Pentagon, Health and Human Services, the Labor Department, Education, Transportation, and HUD. There's a lot of different stuff that still needs funding. There's 13, programs that need to be funded. We're only partially funded right now. We're working on what's called a continuing resolution until January 30th. That's critical because the last government shutdown showed how cracks in the system and the cracks in everyday life quickly come in. We are exposed to different things. Speaking of exposed to different things, we're gonna have a little bit of Tony Portrait Coffee. This is a West End. It's washed, it's chocolatey, it's fantastic. You guys wonder, I get my coffee from I think it's tradecoffee.com. I don't know, I've been on the subscription for like 2 years. I literally never log in. They just charge my card like 16 bucks a month and send me the coffee. Not sponsored, just good shit. So with that being said, it's a little cold here in the man cave. I have my heaters on. I'm doing prep to keep myself good to go. It's like 16 degrees here and my man cave is about 45 degrees. I'm feeling comfortable. I'm feeling pretty good. But then I started thinking like, what are some things I need to make sure I don't let slip through the cracks, that I stay on top of, especially as we approach another potential government shutdown. The last one definitely was a heavy influence on some of my decision making. I purposely didn't travel to certain places during that time frame because when Department of Homeland Security is not fully funded, air traffic controllers and TSA agents, Custom and Border Patrol, ICE agents, they still tend to come to work, but a lot more people start calling out. They're not as tight about their work. They're letting things kind of slip through the cracks. And I just didn't want to put myself through that headache and just to concern myself with even going through that process. Things that are also important, such as the Pentagon's not fully funded. We still had employees that were going to work and the military was going to work and we were robbing Peter to pay Paul, and R&D was being deplenished to pay different troops or whatever. And that didn't directly affect me because I'm no longer active duty, but just to see how quickly appropriated funds can be moved around from one task to another was something that I thought was interesting. But other things that were something that you may want to think about. If you interact with the Department of Transportation, DOT, whether you're getting grants, you have a contract with them, with services or whatever, make sure that you're still allowed to work during that time frame. I think most of you watching this don't have any daily interaction with the DOT other than driving on shitty roads or well-built roads that are funded by the federal government versus state government. But you may be influenced if you are underneath HUD. So like the public housing authorities, those normally continue to run. Those normally find funding. They have like emergency fund that they can use. But that doesn't necessarily mean that if you have an application or if you need a maintenance man or if you need some type of services, somebody to check on something, that may not be as quickly as to happen as it would normally go for when the government's fully open. So if you need HUD for any reason, whether it's a grant or it is a application or whatever, make sure you go ahead and submit that now because you just never know what the end result could be if you're waiting around to do that later on. Next, HHS. Medicare inpatient care should continue to roll on if you're, that's normally not impeded. But if you're like grant funded or if you have healthcare centers that use grant funding and stuff like that, I don't know what those are because my healthcare is through the VA and I have private insurance. But if you are going to a HHS grant funded facility, check and make sure none of your appointments are getting canceled in early February. The Pentagon, Department of War, Department of DO, or the Department of Defense. Expect those employees to still go to work. So if you have contracts, grants, or contracting officer representatives that are supposed to be checking your projects, they're probably still gonna be there. Some lawyers within the DOD may be furloughed, some administrative employees may be furloughed, active duty should still be working. But just check and know if you have any contracts going on, if you live on a base, think about any of those services that could be affected. Now, here's the one that I think could affect the most of us. It would be Department of Homeland Security, Border Patrol, TSA agents, ICE personnel. Those type of folks are going to continue to work, and this whole government shutdown may be orchestrated by the politicians over the Reese ICE shootings or CBP shootings in Minnesota. And the thing about that is that this could be a story that drags on for a while, because I think they're going to try to shut the government down and get some type of concessions, whether it's transparency on detention centers, or it is them to wear body cams, or for them to participate in investigations from independent parties and not investigate themselves. Whatever the Democrats are going to try to get the authorities at DHS to agree to, I think the government's going to get shut down for it. And this is the part where you concern yourself a little bit, because if you have interactions with any of these employees who are still forced to come to work and they're not getting paid, it could be a higher likelihood that you're running into people who are worried about a paycheck, worried about bills, worried about if they're still going to have their health care fully funded, worried about things that don't directly have to do with their job, whether they're a supervisory immigration agent or they're an administrative clerk or someone that just cleans the hallways in different facilities. When people are stressed out about that stuff, sometimes they don't work as effectively, sometimes they take sick days, sometimes the manning is a little bit crunched. That could affect if you have travel coming up in February with TSA agents maybe not going. Air traffic controller almost shut down the country because of how many of them were calling out sick, and as well as Border Patrol and the ICE. So Border Patrol, less agents coming in, more people possibly crossing the border. Doesn't seem very likely with this administration. It seems like they got that shit clamped down there, but still something to think about. If you're a federal employee, if any of those agencies I just mentioned, prepare for potential lapses in your pay, potential furloughs, potential working without immediate pay hitting your bank accounts. If that means that you need to start planning on calling your bank accounts, requesting deferments for your February mortgage payments or car payments, see if that's something that you're able to do. Check and see if you're able to continue to work. Maybe see if your specific agency has 2-year money. Like the VA oftentimes has what we call 2-year money, which is when the government shuts down, they oftentimes stay open because they're funded. If you don't have that color of money, if you don't have that type of money, be prepared to work and try your best to just do what you got to do, man. I understand having to tap into savings or money you don't have can be difficult, especially if you're expected to work and physically come into work without a paycheck. That's tough. If you have to drive or travel 35 minutes a day, spend gas, spend funds, spend transportation costs, and you're not getting immediately paid back, you're paying for daycare, all that stuff is a headache. So your neighbors, people around you, the community at large, the restaurants that are supported through federal employees could be also denigrated or be diminished because they're not getting those people coming in daily. There's a lot of things that definitely could be an issue during a shutdown. There's still parts of the government that are not fully funded. And I don't think we should just sneeze at the fact that we may have another government shutdown. It would not look good for some politicians. You know, for me on a personal note, I am a little concerned about some of the things that I do for interacting with the government, hoping that things go well as well. I think the ATF is already funded, and that has to do with tax stamps for suppressors. You know, I think that the IRS is good to go. I think they got their funding last year, but people are about to start filing their taxes, and I wanna, you know, so if you're depending on that, I think you should be fine. Expect longer wait times, expect that. But when it comes to just overall, expect for the morale to be drugged down. Another government shutdown shows that the inability for those that we elected to get their shit together and to continue to actually run our government with some type of, I don't know, big boy pants. I mean, we're a representative democracy where we vote representatives to go to this place called Washington, D.C. and vote for shit. And sometimes it does suck that those folks are gonna continue to get paid, even if the trains aren't running on time and even if other employees are not getting paid. Even some of their own staff may not get paid while they get paid. just food for thought. I thought I will put that out there. If any of those government agencies or something you rely on or you interact with, prepare now while you still have time. First time stopping by, hit the subscribe button. I would love to have you part of the battalion. If this is not your first time stopping by, well, thank you once again for watching me run my grape. For everyone else, we'll speak soon.